Hey, good morning. Today is Tuesday, May the 7th, 2024, and the time now is 7:17 a.m. So today I am going to start the France series. However, I am going to do something different, okay, a little bit. This means that I am going to uh, focus on the Chinese President Xi Jinping's arrival in France. Basically, I am focusing on his arrival at the airport, okay? How he was received. Also, I am going to focus my talk on three articles, okay? I am not going to read from the articles. However, I will read the article's title to you and then I will proceed. But the main idea for this talk, or the main focus, is the snippet of the events that have occurred in France. Okay, basically focusing on the arrival of the Chinese president. Okay, Xi Jinping. Yes, he is having different event or interaction with the French president Emmanuel Macron, and he was basically received at the palace, Elysee Palace in France, and the French basically conducted the ceremony, okay, the reception ceremony for President Xi Jinping. But I am focusing on the airport. I want to make a comparison between the arrival of Xi Jinping in France and the arrival of the United States Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, okay, in Beijing. Basically, that's it. So, once again, good morning for this talk, which is the first of the series, the France series, and it's going to be based on the arrival of the Chinese President Xi Jinping in Paris, France. Now, three articles that I looked through that I am basing my talk on, and I'm not going to read the articles, but I will, once again, as I've said, read the titles of the articles. The first article I looked at is a Reuters article, and the title for this article reads, China's Xi praises French ties as Macron prepares to talk trade. Once again, I'm going to read that. China's Xi praises French ties as Macron prepares to talk trade. So, once again, this is the first article. The second article is a New York Times article, and the article's title reads, Xi visit Europe seeking strategic opportunity. Once again, I'm going to read this article's title, and this is a New York Times article, and the article's title reads, Xi visits Europe seeking strategic opportunity. When I came across this article, okay, I looked at the title. The first question that came to mind was, what strategic opportunity are you talking about? Yes, it did stated in the article that perhaps part of the trip's main plan, okay, the idea for the trips is to basically isolate Europe from the United States, okay? That's kind of like what the article hints. But also, one question that came to mind is the idea that China probably does not have to work too hard if China's plans is to isolate Europe from the United States. I don't believe that China has to work too hard, because what is happening in the United States, okay, right now, and you have a fear even in Europe of the possibility that Donald Trump is going to take over in next year, 2025. Basically meaning that Donald Trump could win the election in November. And during the past years, okay, during Trump's 4 years in office, he basically insulted Macron. He basically made some shocking remarks that European leaders or NATO leaders do not like. So I do believe, given what is happening in Europe, in Ukraine, okay, Europe basically is, or the Western European country, the Western powers in Europe, okay, they've dedicated themselves to the war effort in Ukraine. The possibility that Trump may come into office and end the war and leading to shame of all four European leaders is something that I do believe we must acknowledge or accept. But you have a situation where the United States and many hawks in the United States are basically trying to egg or inspire, okay, trying to make war with China. So I do believe, as the article is hinting, yes, that could be the possibility that part of Xi Jinping's trip is to isolate Europe from the United States so that it can, China in this case, can deal with the United States by itself. Now, I will have to look at more sources, okay, because the meeting between Macron and the Chinese President Xi Jinping had been going on. So I'm sure there are a lot of things that are going to come out. But in terms of the articles, I do not see anything different, strange. I did not see anything different. Basically, one thing that I want to stress is that all of the articles sounds the same, all of them. And this is something that I know, having focused on U.S. media, primarily the news. Basically, you can hear all of them saying the same thing. But I did not realize how strong this thing is, or how evident it is, this reality, in terms of the print media. But everything that I looked at in all three of these articles sounds the same. And it is giving me anxiety because we are in a time, okay, at a time and in a position, okay, given the modern academic system, the modern education system, or the system of knowledge, okay, in this case, presenting what you know, thinking you know, acting like you know, or being able to engage in discussion. You are asked to bring multiple evidence, okay, or evidences, if you will. However, I am looking at these articles, and it sounds like the same person wrote all of these articles, or that the various print media platforms out there, they are working together, okay? They are basically parroting lines from one another's articles, okay? And then posting them on their website or printing them. That's basically what it sounds like. But reading these articles and also focusing on what is being said in the news, okay? The echo that I'm getting from France, from Macron, or from the European or from the American media, if you will, is basically strongly based on the economic imbalance between Europe and China, or let's say the growth of China. China has grown significantly to the point where, yes, it wants to maintain trade with Europe, but it is not going to be pushed around. Okay? It is not going to be pushed around. And Europe actually is desperate. Looking at what's going on in Ukraine, looking at the fact that the rest of the world is changing, you have BRICS that is taking shape rapidly with more countries joining the organization. You have the destruction of European manufacturing base, or the impact of European manufacturing bases based on the war in Ukraine. Europe is desperate and must maintain trade with China. Okay? So I want to stress that. Now, I did talk with a friend. Okay? We talk about politics, geopolitics. And one thing he stressed is that the the sanction that was being imposed on China was basically mostly imposed on European companies. So in this case, the United States is imposing sanction on European countries doing business with China or in China. So Europe is caught in between the might of the United States and the might of China. You have a China that is not going to capitulate, okay? A China with national self-esteem, okay? A China with dignity and that will speak up for itself and defend itself. You have Europe that is basically, yes, it is economically sound compared to the rest of the world, Africa, or whatever, but even Europe itself is in a very hurtful position, a very painful position. For the French, being kicked out of West Africa, out of the Sahel, is going to be hurtful for them as well. So what I'm getting is the importance of the economic situation between France or between Europe and China. It is more so in these articles than the whole idea of trying to isolate Europe from the United States, even though the articles are hinting to that. So I just want to stress that reading the articles, yes, the articles do make hints about the idea that China's President Xi Jinping's trip to Europe, okay, is an attempt by China to isolate Europe from the United States. It could be the main reason. It could be part of the reason. However, the echo of the articles, it seems that the most important thing that the articles together in general are stressing is that which pertains to economics, okay? The economic imbalance of Europe to China. Now, this trip is said to be a very significant trip, which started in France, and it basically supposed to include Serbia, Hungary, and I do believe Russia. And pretty soon, Vladimir Putin is going to be inaugurated, okay, for his fifth term. However, the trip to France by China's President Xi Jinping, the arrival at the airport, his reception at the airport, to me, was very poor. And when I looked at the videos, when I watched the videos about the reception, okay, of Xi Jinping in France, in Paris, it is poor. It seems disorganized. And to me, I asked, it seems as if the French, they didn't know what they were doing or they did not try at all. First of all, one conclusion that I was able to draw with what is going on in the world today in terms of geopolitics, it appears to me that the French were trying to position themselves or to make themselves look like the boss, okay? To make themselves look like the boss. Basically, trying to look strong and tough and downplay the seriousness of the trip. Now, I must read this actually. I don't want to read the description, but I think I'm going to read it. And the description reads, Xi Jinping visits France. Chinese President Xi Jinping visited France during his diplomatic tour of Europe. This European trip, including France, Serbia, Hungary, and Russia, is his first since 2019, or at least that is what is being noted out there in the media. President Xi was poorly welcomed or received at the airport. The reception seemed disorganized. The French did a terrible job for a global leader as significant as Xi. The welcome was fit for a low-class subordinate leader of a colonized country without spine, an esteem, or dignity, let alone the audacity to demand respect for himself or for his country. And I know people who are watching this, you probably think I am referring to African leaders when I make that statement, such as the welcome was fit for a low-class subordinate leader of a colonized country without spine, an esteem or dignity, let alone the audacity to demand respect for himself or for his country. Look, the way they treat African leaders and leaders of the poor, powerless countries is very unique. And we saw that when Queen Elizabeth passed. And during the burial, they basically loaded all African leaders in a bus like school children, okay, in a bus like school children, while U.S. president and other Western president got to roam freely in London, okay, like the big bosses of humanity. And this statement, I am not trying to be disrespectful to the French or to the Chinese leaders, but I do believe that the reception was very poor, okay? It was uncalled for, given the significance of the Chinese president. I'm going to continue. This can be interpreted by Hawks as mistreatment or disrespect by an epic proportion. Given the current tension in geopolitics and the drive by many countries, particularly in the West, to appear strong and significant, one can easily speculate the lack of decorum the French demonstrated at the airport was meant to appear strong and the boss and that China must obey. At least that is one way that I put it. Of course, the Chinese president or the Chinese are not going to react to throw tantrum, but I do remember having a Chinese professor. The professor made a reference to China and the United States, how the United States is everything fast, 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 and power, 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 seems strong. And that the Chinese, they move slowly, but they get the work done, okay? They achieve what they set out to achieve. So the Chinese are not going to respond, but I do believe Macron might get his in return when he visits China, Beijing. Or the Chinese may just let it go. But I'm going to continue with the text. It could also be an attempt by President Macron, to downplay President Xi's visit while throwing insults without appearing to do so. So this is one way I look at it, but with this idea, I was basically able to affirm or confirm this with a friend. He helped me to state this in the manner in which I have stated it, or to think of it in the manner in which I am stating it right now. Okay? As much as I said earlier, it is an attempt, or could be an attempt by the French to look tough, but also it could be an attempt by President Macron and the French to downplay Xi's visit while at the same time appearing to look strong. Macron could have been at the airport. Yes, Macron did organize the reception at the Elysee Palace, but I do believe the reception at the airport, in the long run, doesn't make France look good. I'm going to continue. And I'll read the statement once again. It could also be an attempt by President Macron to downplay President Xi's visit while throwing insults without appearing to be doing so. While this could be the case, the French humiliated themselves. The officials at the airport seems out of place. For one, they appeared as if they did not know what they were doing. And it was like an elementary school where one of the students had arrived with the leader's or hardest toy, and everyone wanted to see it even though they were out of place. Of course, President Xi was welcomed by the French Prime Minister Gabriel Attal. However, this man looks like a 12-year-old prep schooler than a top official of a country. Now, I am not trying to throw an insult. I am basically just stressing an observation. In fact, Gabriel Attal, the French Prime Minister, looks so young in the face in terms of his stature and everything that honestly I thought that he was a college student or some tall, grown-looking high school student who was sent to do the welcoming. Usually, or sometimes when high dignitaries, presidents, visits countries, they might send a young little girl with flower or a young boy that might come speak the language that they learn in school to that leader, okay, speak their language as a welcoming, okay, gestures. That's what I thought, okay? Honestly, I did not think that the French actually have prime minister. I've only know France to have a president. So watching the video, Gabriel Attal looks so young, and the persona that he gives was that of a young high schooler or college student welcoming a high dignitary. So the whole thing was out of place, actually. However, I am going to continue. However, this man looks more like a 12-year-old prep schooler than a top official of a country. He gave off the persona of a tour guide. In the presence of President Macron, the French football team that lost the World Cup in Qatar was mostly young and inexperienced. However, given their position in the ranks of global football and the fact that they know their stuff, they probably would have done a better job receiving President Xi. I'm just being humorous here, but I think that the reception was poor. I'm going to continue. The reception's symbolism resembles that of U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken in Beijing. Some have asserted that President Xi's reception could have resulted from pressure from the U.S. While that could be the case, in terms of political superiority, Secretary Blinken is at least 3 spots removed from succession to the U.S. presidency. The French did not give President Xi a welcome suitable for his significance. So I'm going to continue. Note: examining multiple sources before concluding or forming an opinion is a good practice. However, all 3 articles are the same. So this is what I mentioned earlier. I couldn't see anything different in all of the article. And it is concerning in the world today where we are basically fed the same thing. And our ability to reason and to speak freely is being limited. And we are seeing this right now, even in the United States, where university students are being arrested or brutalized or criticized because they are protesting. Okay? Whether or not we agree with their position or not, in terms of the concept of freedom of speech, it is their right. They're supposed to protest. Now I'm going to continue. Question number 1. What strategic opportunity does this visit present to President Xi? How and why? This question is basically for the articles, okay, the New York Times articles that states that Xi's visit is to seek strategic opportunity, okay, in the West. I don't know how or to what extent President Xi or China benefit from this visit, okay? Or if that's the case, can we then say that it is also a strategic opportunity for France? It has to be both ways. Okay? I'm going to continue. Number 2. Is China the only surveillance state in the world? I don't remember which article specifically. One of the articles basically takes a shot at China and basically labels China as a surveillance state. So it basically prompted me to ask this question. Is China the only surveillance state in the world? Number 3. The European Union does not have hegemonic mindset. And I ask, how so? Now, that statement is a quote by a Chinese, I think, official or a Chinese expert, a college professor. So, in one of the articles, this professor or expert or dignitary, if you will, states that the European Union does not have an hegemonic mindset. And it prompted me when I read that statement to ask, how so? What is your evidence? I want to say that Europe, NATO, the European Union right now is a subordinated entity to the United States. So we may not see Europe's perspective in terms of it being distinct from the United States. Okay? However, the United States right now is the leader of the West, the leader of the White West. Whatever is parroted in the United States, in Washington, D.C., when it is geopolitics, maybe not economics, but when it is geopolitics, I do believe it is the United States. It is America's. Okay? If we look at what's happening right now, the manner in which Europe and America, okay, the White West, conducts global affairs, it bears semblance to what they did in the 14, 15, 16, and 1700s, where European countries acted with impunity when they did whatever they wanted to the rest of humanity and got away with it. Okay? And for Africans, the whole idea that Europe does not have an hegemonic mindset is wrong. Yes, Europe as a general entity may not present one. However, the various European powers, whether we are talking about the UK, the Germans, the French, they are hegemonic power. They still maintain hegemony over Africans and over parts, regions, and people of the world. Perhaps I'm wrong, but I do believe, based on our experiences and the experiences of people around the world, people of color. I'm going to continue. Number 4, European leaders are stressing President Xi has leverage over Russia to end the war. Why are they putting it all on Xi? How can he end a war that Europeans and Americans continue to fund with money and munitions? Number 5, European leaders are crying about an unfair trade imbalance with China when their current position is a consequence of their own doing. Also, it is interesting that a region of this world whose power and prestige is deeply rooted in its bullying and brutality towards the rest of humanity is crying foul. I am going to read that again. European leaders are crying about an unfair trade imbalance with China when their current position is a consequence of their own doing. Also, it is interesting that a region of this world whose power and prestige are deeply rooted in its bullying and brutality towards the rest of humanity is crying foul. It is interesting given the development around the world in terms of geopolitics, whether we are talking about economics, government, military, and other sorts of things. Okay? This is a very interesting reality, a very interesting development that is going on around the world. So once again, I will be ending now, but I want to stress again that I am not certain of President Xi's visit. Okay, absolute main reason. Okay, there's economics, there is military, there is a whole sorts of things. The war in Ukraine could be part of it, as much as it is to isolate the United States, okay, or isolate Europe from the United States. Now, in the US, we currently have the whole TikTok thing going on. And in fact, I do remember in one of my programs or video about TikTok, I stress or I ask the question of the possibility that European countries could follow suit. This means that they themselves could begin to introduce bills out there in their parliaments to force the sale of TikTok or ban it altogether, as it is being developed in the United States currently. Okay? Look, I do believe that what is practiced in the United States in Washington, D.C., what is said in terms of the policy in Washington, D.C., okay, perhaps excluding economics, but it is the same as Europe. Now we are seeing throughout the White West, we are seeing the emergence of radicalism, okay, of governments that tends to the ideologies of the right. Now, we need to consider as a global South that these countries, these right leaders in the West, that they are working together because they all have the same perceptions, which is the dominance of Europe economically, militarily, culturally, and in all sorts of realities over the rest of humanity. Now, as an African, I don't know what the African Union is doing. Perhaps the African Unions, I don't know whether they do have experts that are formulating African policies, okay, which they will pass down to a young African generation to carry out international cooperation, business interaction with the rest of the world based on. But again, I will end right here and stressing again that the reception of the Chinese President Xi Jinping in France was very poor, okay, for a man of his international or global significance, and that the French did a very bad job. It appears as if they did not know what they were doing or that they did not try at all. They were disorganized, okay? And yes, they did send the French Prime Minister, Gabriel Attal, but he, I do believe, doesn't or did not make the situation better. But I'm going to end here now. Thank you very much for watching The Echoing Voice. Peace.